What if I told you that entire cities depend on what happens after hours? When the lights dim, the real work begins. In Bangkok, Berlin, and Ibiza, the after-dark economy fuels up to 10% of total city revenue, feeding hotels, taxis, restaurants, and entire neighborhoods that only wake when the sun goes down. In the United States, the nightlife and club sector generates as much as $40 billion every year, supporting more than 700,000 jobs. That's about the same size as the United States Air Force and Navy combined. Welcome to the seedy side. On this channel, we explore the parts of the world society pretends not to see. In this episode, we'll explore the hidden economy after midnight. The world never truly sleeps. It just changes shifts. Beneath the glow of neon lights, things are never as they seem. When Main Street clocks out, the city exhales, and the thin facade of order gives way to a rhythm of survival. This nightlife and club sector moves off ledger capital through a complex web of legitimate and unregulated streams. A shadow circuit that keeps the city humming while the world above sleeps. What exactly is the draw? The lights, the glamour, the thrill of standing at the edge of society. Sort of. According to researchers, the pull is freedom, fantasy, and belonging. The same forces that have drawn people to the night for centuries. After dark, the usual hierarchies and rigid social structures blur. The accountant becomes a dancer. The driver becomes a DJ, a confidant, a guide. And everyone can afford to rent a sense of status. Clubs sell controlled chaos, a pulse of indulgence amid the streaming lights. A place where rules loosen, but still feel safe. In the shadows of that chaos, anonymity offers a ritual of release. For those who feel trapped by daylight expectations, the night becomes a few stolen hours to reinvent themselves and disappear again before dawn. In this space, there is a place for every fantasy, every personality, every human desire. Here, the outcast finds family. For the workers who make it all possible, the draw is survival and community. Night shifts pay cash, tips flow quickly, and camaraderie grows among those who share the same reversed rhythm. The after-hours economy offers opportunity to people shut out of the traditional 9-to-5 world. Artists, migrants, students, and the undocumented alike. According to London's Nighttime Industries Association, the post-sunset economy fuels up to 6% of GDP in the United Kingdom. In cities like Bangkok, Berlin, and Ibiza, between 5 and 10% of city revenue depends on nightlife-driven tourism. Sociologists estimate that 1 in 6 urban workers in developed economies engages in some form of after-hours labor. This isn't a niche subculture. It's a shadow workforce powering daylight prosperity. And if that scale needs proof, MasterCard data from 2024 shows that experiences in nightlife now account for 12% of total global tourism sales, the highest in 5 years. But the same traits that make nightlife exciting also make it vulnerable to compromising. Cash-based transactions invite wage theft, tax evasion, and unscrupulous activity. Substances and predatory behavior thrive in low-visibility spaces. Forced labor networks sometimes intersect with entertainment districts. Safety lapses, unlicensed security, overcrowding, and alcohol-related force remain recurring issues. reports show that incidents of force can rise 15 to 30% between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m., driven less by organized networks and more by alcohol, density, and exhaustion. So why does society look the other way? Because the night pays too well to shut down. City governments collect millions in licensing and tourism taxes from nightlife. Law enforcement often balances containment with preservation, maintaining order without killing economic momentum. For citizens, the night serves as a social pressure valve, an arena for sanctioned deviance that keeps daytime civility intact. After all, if the deepest human desires were locked away, would society face something far less manageable? And history shows that the same elites who condemn indulgence often privately invest in it. Most humans, it seems, have a capacity for excess, for better or worse. Perhaps the midnight economy thrives because it satisfies something innate in us while feeding some of the largest economic engines the world has ever known. A system built on collective, selective vision. But the more we depend on the night, the darker it becomes, and the less we notice the shadows. When desire becomes currency, the night keeps its own books. The pull isn't love, it's livelihood. For as long as cities have existed, someone has offered the illusion of connection. And for as long as people have felt alone, they've been willing to pay for it. This is the oldest market, one that moves quietly through every major city on Earth, operating between the lines of morality, law, and human need. In the United States alone, unregulated transactions linked to the adult industry generate more than $15 billion a year. Legal work in parts of Nevada adds another 50 to 60 million annually, most of it tied to tourism. Globally, the intimacy trade is valued near $200 billion, rivaling film and recorded music combined. The appeal isn't always what people think. It isn't just desire or power, it's transformation. For some, it's a job. For others, survival. For a select few, control. The power to turn vulnerability into value. Cities like Bangkok, Amsterdam, and Berlin depend on this shadow circuit more than they admit. In Thailand, adult-oriented tourism accounts for close to 10% of national GDP. In Amsterdam, the designated nightlife district brings in hundreds of millions of euros in taxes and visitor spending. And yet, the people behind the glass, or behind the scenes, remain invisible, both commodified and erased at the same time. The line between empowerment and compromising blurs with every transaction. Licensed venues create safety and taxes, but they also legitimize voyeurism. Criminalization claims morality, but it drives the work deeper underground where risk multiplies. In the end, neither side wins. Only the market adapts, and that market is changing fast. What was once confined to certain streets has moved online. Subscription platforms, encrypted apps, virtual rooms where fantasy never sleeps. The oldest profession now has algorithms, influencers, and its own economy of attention. But the work, the risk, and the economics remain the same. Still, the glow of the night hides an uncomfortable truth. Entire economies are built on what happens out of sight. Governments tax it when they can, condemn it when they must, and depend on it far more than they admit. In cities built for temptation, Even the night has a price tag. In Las Vegas, a single weekend can define a year. 6 figures made one tip at a time. In Miami, the same economy glows under palm trees, powered by music, tourism, and the illusion of paradise. The official numbers say 50, maybe 70,000 a year, but that's just what's on paper. The real value moves in cash, in connection, in everything daylight doesn't count. Where there's desire, there's demand. And where there's demand, the night always finds supply. The oldest market endures because it's not really about intimacy. It's about survival, validation, and the oldest instinct of all, the need to be seen, even if only for a moment. When exhaustion meets ambition, chemistry takes over. Every city has its trade in desire. Some sell attention, others affection. But deeper in the shadows, the night trades something stronger. Here, chemistry replaces intimacy, and the exchange runs silent through every class and corridor. This is the other current that powers the hidden economy, the trade in escape. The pull is universal. Escape, euphoria, endurance. For participants, it's a break from the noise. For suppliers, it's a business that never sleeps. From medications to more exotic substances, every compound sold after dark is part of a chain stretching from labs and farms to alley corners and phone screens. But the draw isn't always rebellion or indulgence. Sometimes it's productivity. Across the world, entire industries quietly run on chemistry meant to sharpen focus, extend shifts, or suppress exhaustion. In logistics hubs, long-haul drivers rely on stimulants to stay awake. In tech sectors and universities, performance enhancers have become the new form of coffee, unspoken, but everywhere. In Southeast Asia alone, this pattern fuels billions in informal labor output, particularly in Thailand, Myanmar, and Laos, where a regional stimulant known locally as yaba keeps overnight workers moving. No global agency puts an exact figure on it, but regional studies suggest these substances indirectly sustain up to 1 to 1.5% of regional GDP through informal productivity. In wealthier nations, the same logic wears a cleaner label. Prescription stimulants meant for attention disorders are quietly repurposed by students and professionals chasing the same edge. Economists call it enhanced productivity. Doctors call it dependence. Either way, it's profitable. Some studies estimate that cognitive enhancers contribute the equivalent of tens of billions of dollars in temporary output to the U.S. economy each year. Globally, the illicit substance economy is worth between $400 and $600 billion a year, roughly 1% of global GDP. In the United States alone, this unregulated network moves around $150 billion annually, about the same as the entire legal alcohol industry. But where there is profit, there is force. In Latin America, entire towns depend on cultivation for survival, even as it fuels instability. Violence linked to the trade has taken tens of thousands of lives each year, much of it tied to supply corridors feeding consumer demand across borders. Untracked funds bleed into legitimate sectors: construction, real estate, and nightlife. And the International Monetary Fund estimates that up to 5% of global GDP is cycled through illicit channels, much of it linked to these substances. At the personal level, The line between recreation and reliance is thin. The World Health Organization reports that nearly 40 million people worldwide live with health issues tied to sustained use, yet fewer than 1 in 5 receive treatment. And still, demand grows. Not out of rebellion, but out of rhythm. Modern life rewards endurance, and chemistry promises to stretch the body in service of productivity, pleasure, or simply escape. So why does society look away? Because the illicit dollar doesn't disappear. It circulates. It pays rent, funds imports, supports rural economies, and quietly moves through city nightlife. Governments collect billions in taxes from the same substances they once criminalized. The states that waged policy campaigns against the trade now profit from its regulation. Banks, insurers, and investors benefit indirectly as capital cleansing re-enters legitimate markets. The system tolerates the contradiction because it keeps the wheel turning. This hidden market sits at the fault line between survival and profit, an economy of demand that no nation has ever truly dismantled. It flows through every port, nightclub, and boardroom, disguised as something else. And as long as people seek escape, there will always be someone ready to supply it. The night doesn't just hide the trade, it depends on it. Every city tells 2 stories, one in daylight and one after dark. The daylight city is measured. Taxes, salaries, rules, respectability. The night city runs on something older: instinct, indulgence, survival. One operates in spreadsheets. The other moves in whispers and untracked funds. The shadow circuit doesn't compete with the daylight. It completes it. Each depends on the other like inhale and exhale. Every paycheck spent on release becomes someone else's rent, someone else's tip, someone else's escape. It's an ecosystem built on human need and maintained by collective silence. Governments call it unregulated. Corporations call it external. But economists know better. The off-ledger capital of the night keeps the daylight market stable. And though few admit it, the rhythm of survival keeps the pulse of modern economies alive. We can legislate, regulate, moralize, but as long as people chase comfort, status, and sensation, there will always be a market waiting to sell it. The forms may change, from clubs to screens, from cash to crypto, but the desire stays the same. What happens after midnight doesn't vanish with the sunrise. It lingers in bank accounts, in memories, in the quiet transactions we pretend not to notice. The hidden economy isn't separate from society. It is society stripped of its mask. Every light casts a shadow, and the deeper you look, the more you see. If you felt something tonight, curiosity, unease, fascination, don't turn away. Hit like, subscribe, come back, and we'll keep exploring the seedy side.